We need people to speak up, and we don't need people just to be depressed and morose and unhappy. We need people to be angry. And a great injustice has been done to our state, to our families, to our livelihoods, to our jobs, and quite possibly to the yet to be born. I went out on the Thursday night the lockdown came into effect with a few other people on the streets. I call it the 11:59 swill. And I was out with my girlfriend touring the bars and the restaurants, going for one last hurrah. And even then, these poor people were still asking for our names and addresses, still making us sanitise our hands, still knocking us back if they had up to the 20-person, a meagre 20-person allowance, still distancing the tables. These are the hard-working people who have been punished for Daniel Andrews' incompetence. And I'm not a believer anyway in the fact that another outbreak could have been withheld. We don't have to worry about a second wave, Chris. We have to worry about a 10th wave or a 20th wave. Are we going to do this every single time?
Yeah.
Are we going to lock down our restaurants and destroy our economies every single time? I mean, the fact that we are repeating this awful experiment that will ruin thousands of lives is just reprehensible. I know Twitter is not real life and all of that, and it skews heavily to the extreme left, but the absurd I stand with Dan hashtaggery that's gone over the last few days, I mean, they're acting as if Daniel Andrews is healing the sick with his bare hands like Jesus Christ.
He's a very good actor, though. Gideon is a very good actor.
He's one of the best in the business when it comes to scrambling and being a good politician. But look, can you imagine for a second, Chris, if a Liberal Premier was locking our most disadvantaged people up in housing estates and not letting them go out to buy food? I mean, come on, there is a clear double standard.
Exactly.
This actually goes to the previous caller as well, that terribly heartbreaking story. You know, people say to me, you know, you don't take this virus seriously because you oppose the lockdown. No, I take the virus extremely seriously. I'm washing my hands, I'm sanitising, I'm wearing a mask. What I hate, though, is the involvement of the government, because government policy, as monstrous as this, always gets things wrong, and it's always arbitrary. And you're right, you do have somebody who happens to have invested in or started a business that happens to be a restaurant or a cafe or a pub punished, while somebody who, you know, gets a knick-knack shop or rather Bunnings or Myer or David Jones or any of the big corporate retailers are doing a roaring trade. And again, back to the previous call, you have people who can't see their wives in terrible circumstances like that. You've got people who can't see, you know, grandparents who haven't been able to see their grandchildren because, or their adult children because, you know, of border closures. This is ripping our families and communities and economies and livelihoods apart. You know, people are decent, Chris. People will do the right thing, and they'll, by and large, and they'll stay safe and they'll stay distanced. We do not need the government to come up with stupid arbitrary rules like this. Because if they do that, then people lose faith in the whole thing and just ignore it. Some sort of compensation is due, but the best thing for all of us that, you know, might not fix the damage would be cathartic is for Andrews and the ministers who oversaw this to resign and leave the parliament. I mean, you can, in all sense of honour, he had one job, he staked his leadership on it, and he blew it. It's time for him to go.